Got my eyes straight ahead, got my head in the game. With the red light on, I'm just waiting for the change. Keep my head down low.
For far too long here in Queensland, the great, I call it great, maybe once was, great state that I live in, we've been letting things slide for far too long. Just, just that blase attitude, it'll all be good. It's all good. It's all good, as they like to say. But just letting things slide. Something will happen and it's all good. It'll all be fine. Don't worry about it. Just, as long as it doesn't affect me too much, well, that's good. We can just let that slide. As long as it doesn't affect the ones that I love. Oh, it's sad when you hear about it happening to someone else. But, it's all good. Doesn't really matter. It's nothing to worry about. It's not going to affect me personally too much. But, as I've spoken about before, first, they come for this group of people and no one says anything. Then they come for this group of people and no one says anything. And then they come for that group of people and no one says anything. And, eventually they come for you and there's no one left to say anything because no one ever says anything. But reading these stories, I think a little naive. So we've got this Queensland lawyer, fairly famous, O'Gorman, fairly famous or well-known lawyer anyway. He's raised concerns of police surveillance of pro-Palestine demonstrators. One thing I think it's a little naive the way he describes it. It's a little naive. I mean, this is if he's concerned about this kind of surveillance, you know. Let's read the article. So this comes out. Prominent Queensland civil rights advocates have raised concerns about the photographing and surveillance of pro-Palestine protesters by the state's police force. It is. I do find it a little disconcerting, I suppose, a little humorous that everyone's so concerned about pro-Palestinian protesters. There wasn't quite the same amount of concern when it came to people who were protesting against getting a little experimental jab put in you. No one was really that concerned about that. But now we're concerned. Guardian Australia has seen photos and videos of Queensland police officers photographing protesters at a pro-Palestine demonstration in Logan in December. They've seen the photographs. Nick Outram, a legal observer for the volunteer group Action Ready, has attended several pro-Palestinian, pro-Palestine protests since November in Brisbane and Logan. He says he's also witnessed police writing down the number plates of cars with Palestinian flags on them. Wow, it's heavy stuff. We're concerned about the ongoing collection of data by police, what's being used for, and how long it is stored. I'll tell you how long it's stored. It's stored forever. What do you mean how long it's stored? Once it's down in the digital world and out on their intraweb, it's stored. It's there. It's done. It's not getting deleted. Don't fool yourself. There's quite a risk already of being tainted with attending a protest that was completely peaceful. Yeah, okay. You would expect that there would be full transparency rather than hiding behind operational practice. Full transparency. Who's this fellow? Oh, has full transparency. Has he got no flipping idea? Full transparency. There's never going to be full transparency when it comes to policing, law enforcement in general. Never going to be full transparency, especially when you are conducting information gathering. Never going to be full transparency. And how can there be? I mean, in all honesty, how can there be? They need the information, and I'm not really not sticking up for Queensland Police here, but this is just the way it's going to be, no matter what jurisdiction you're in. They need the information. They want the information. They're going to take it down. There's not going to be full transparency, and I don't understand. He's seen people taking down registration plates of people with Palestinian, pro-Palestinian flags and that kind of thing on them. Let me give you the hot tip. If it's gotten to the stage where someone in uniform or someone who's an obvious police officer, maybe they're plain clothes, but they've still got the belt and everything on, badge around their neck. If it's gotten to the stage where they are taking down details, registration, and this kind of thing, well, you know, uh, it's already been taken down by a dozen other police that you haven't seen. It's already been seen by all the cameras that are hanging around with facial recognition on them. So if you're worried about the uniform cop who's taking down details, come on, it's already been taken down by a lot of other people. Going on with this article, the long serving Vice President of Queensland Civil Liberties Council, Terry O'Gorman, says there is no justification for police filming peaceful protesters, and police and the government should stop this immediately. Should stop this immediately. I don't know whether they. This has been going on for decades. Peaceful street protest is as much, if not more, a part of what constitutes a democracy than voting every 3 or 4 years. It is a bedrock of democracy. O'Gorman said the police monitoring protesters was reflective of the gradual chipping away at the right to peaceful protest throughout Australia. Queensland has a history not too far in the past of police engaging activities, particularly in the 70s and 80s, where they totally shut down protesting. It is one thing for police to video a protest where there are arrests in order to get evidence for court cases, but to video as a matter of course is simply a return in another manner to the protest patterns of the 70s and 80s. The Greens MP Michael Berkman wrote to the police minister in December, raising concerns about police deploying excessive surveillance tactics towards pro Palestinian protesters and urging the government to end the practice. Yeah, the poor pro Palestinian protesters. I mean, like I said before, a war going on, everyone's protesting. You have all these people that came from over the Middle East, all out there protesting, waving their Palestinian flags. Do you really think they're great for this country? I don't think so. Like I said, if you're so concerned about Palestine and the Gaza Strip, well, go back to Palestine and the Gaza Strip. If you want to take up arms, go back there and take up arms. Don't be protesting from the peace and safety of Australia. Don't be causing trouble in this country and then whinging about it when police take down your details and acting all surprised when they're videoing and taking down registration plates. And for crying out loud, do you seriously, that the uniform copper that takes down your details is like the only one? That's where it all ends. You've got all those cameras around everywhere in the CBD, in the city, facial recognition, taking down all the details, people sitting in offices, in rooms you don't even know about, monitoring cameras, watching, taking down details, taking down registrations. You've got covert operatives who are out there in the field taking down details, watching people. You've got teams out there. Don't be so flipping naive as to think that the uniform cops who are taking down a few details along the way, that they're the problem with the surveillance, that they shouldn't be taking down details. Because I tell you what, if it's gotten to the point where the uniform copper is taking down details of someone and taking down the registration plates, I would bet something has happened that has raised suspicions within them, and that's the reason why they're taking it down. These are not innocent protesters. But just don't be so naive to think that, this is all going to stop if we just stand up and say, oh, the police have to stop this. They've already got the details like tenfold. Anyway, this whole story just kind of, I mean, it even goes on about saying, I'm concerned about this excessive surveillance could discourage or limit free participation in peaceful protests. I think I told the story about how I was sitting in a meeting a few years ago, and we'd done training with another quite a few other government organisations, law enforcement organisations. The feds are there, ASIO, other surveillance organisations from Australia, and we're also working with the SAS. How can I? Anyway, so we were doing all this training with SAS, and at the end of it all, we're having a bit of a debrief. And then one of our senior officers, who like very senior, was sitting down in our office and talking about how 9/11, 9/11 is in 9/11 in America, had shaped the way we conduct surveillance and the way Australia views at its security risks these days. And that is when a lot of things had changed when it came to security, when it came to surveillance. Obviously, everything changed in our airports from then on. And when they came to surveillance, taking out details, it was all used as an excuse. But what really concerned me was the talk had gone from, okay, so it was all brought in because obviously we had to, we had to protect ourselves from the big bad Muslim bomber. That's the excuses put out there. We don't want people coming over here blowing up planes. But then everything was starting to change, and they were starting to be concerned over the people who were what they now believed were going to be the new kind of radicals, were people who would be what you would now classify as being on the far right, people who didn't really conform to society with that left-leaning point of view, which got me very, at the time, and I think I expressed this, I was sitting there thinking, wow, it wouldn't be hard to look at a lot of, like, some of my beliefs, or a lot of the people I know that are just Christians, and they would end up falling into that category. This is where it's all going with surveillance. They started back after 9/11, and they used that excuse to bring in excessive surveillance worldwide, and it's just continuing and continuing and continuing. And this is what we have in Australia now. And don't be so naive as to think that, putting out a call and getting the uniform copper to stop taking down details is an end to it. They've already taken down your details, probably tenfold, through all the cameras that are in there, not to mention all the AI that's used with the cameras these days as well. And then you've got all the covert surveillance that's going on as well, and covert surveillance teams. Get away from me with this rubbish about calling out. It's just, this whole story is just pandering, and raising concerns of police surveillance for pro-Palestinian demonstrators. It's just pandering to these Palestinian demonstrators. And I tell you what, these people who are out there protesting, the pro-Palestinian, pro-Palestine demonstrators, I would bet you a vast majority of them are anti-Australia Day. Guarantee it. They're out there protesting for Palestine, protesting against Israel. Israel's not allowed to defend themselves. I would guarantee you a vast majority of them are going to be anti-Australia Day. The same people will be out there protesting against Australia Day, standing up with the so-called, Indigenous people, all like the Lydia Thorpes, and protesting, saying, "Oh, yep, get rid of Australia Day." Speaking of Australia Day, I'm going to do another podcast just going through some of my thoughts again regarding Australia Day and where I stand on the whole issue. Anyway, that'll be later.
They just fuel a desire that will take me higher. I'm on fire because nothing's going